Hi, I am Laura D. Busey, the founder of Dipism, Death in Practice. And this is the channel where we are talking the things on life and death, dying and grief. Each week I answer a question and I say it as I see it because I've seen a lot. In the last video, I answered the question, what if I break down and cry? If you still have questions about that video or you want to ask me another question, then you can send an email to deathinpractice@gmail.com. Okay, let's open the veil of luminescence. With the intention of infinite truths, by the pulse of sacred light, I call forth the veil of luminescence. I anchor this veil in sovereign light to transmute and contain all energetic imprints, attachments, and residues across all realms. The material plane, where grief etches into the body. The emotional plane, where sorrow swells and purges. The mental plane, where stories of loss seek resolution. The astral plane, where echoes of the departed linger. The interdimensional corridors, where ancestral and cosmic threads intertwine. The parallel universes, where grief and grace mirror each other. This veil, woven of remembrance and radiance, is encoded with clarity to discern what is yours and what is not. Containment to protect your field. Compassion to honour the sacred work of grief. Transmutation to alchemize pain into wisdom. Let this veil shimmer between worlds, holding space for the divinity of each soul, the teachings where presence dissolves suffering, the soul's awakening where death births depth, the healing where grief becomes grace. This veil is not a wall but a sacred membrane, allowing only what aligns with truth, love, and remembrance to pass through. By the breath of the infinite, by the pulse of the sacred, I seal this veil with sovereignty and light. All right, babe. Welcome and thank you for joining me. Today we are answering the question, why did God allow this to happen? This is a heavy one because there are many different interpretations of what God is, who God is, how and why God moves, and how we are judged by our idea of who or what God is. As usual, I think very different to most people. I hope that I am able to get my thoughts across so that you might find a form of relief in a brand new perspective. Our idea of God has been culturally shaped and historically conditioned. Socially inherited narratives have told us how to live, what to strive for, and what we can expect from life, but no one ever considers death within their calculations. We are all bound to notions of time and death, regardless of how we understand them in our minds. When a loved one dies, we can be quick to believe that our God has forsaken us, which means abandoned or deserted us. We want answers, and we look a little closer at our understanding of life and death and the God of our understanding. But we don't know what, who, or where God is. All we have is the social information that has been passed along the lines of culture, religion, politics, and our relationships. So when one of our valued relationships come to an end, we are left reeling, baffled, and wondering what has gone wrong. Why did God allow this to happen to us? Was it something that we did, something we said, something we didn't do, like openly worship Him, go to church on Sundays, or say our prayers? Well, if that is what your God requires of you, then maybe this death was a trigger to reset you on that path. But what if this death was predetermined? Even if it feels premature, what if your loved one simply died on time or in time? We have all been given the opportunity to observe life, death, and time. I have taken that opportunity, and from what I see, I can only ever fall back on the observation that our lives are divinely orchestrated in ways that we can only ever see in hindsight if we know what we are looking for. Whether someone you know or love dies suddenly or slips away day by day before your eyes, you are forced to reflect on your own personal experience of life. That means that you remember your being, your source, your spark, that life force within you, that which perhaps is truly your God. Now, though, your being feels persecuted, under fire, bitter, and resentful. Quite unlike the rules we break and the disappointments that we have been led to believe that we are in His eyes, what if God is actually that spark of life within us that is having a human experience here on earth, feeling pain, feeling sorrow, hurt, rejection and abandonment, likewise jubilation, thrills and merriment? If that is the case, then the death of your loved one is simply the end of the physical life, not the end of the journey. Because their spark is your spark. It's my spark. It's everyone and everywhere experiencing life in its own unique way and providing us opportunities to observe yet more life, more death, more time. The sudden, unfair, ghastly, tragic, untimely death of someone you love may well be an act of God, deciding it wants to experience life from this different perspective. We can't separate life from death, the good from the bad, the positive from the negative. It is impossible. And yet, within it all, energy can't die. It can only change form. So as an observer of life, you would have the experience, and all who know your loved one will have their experience, and all who didn't know your loved one but will hear of them will have their own personal experience. And those who never knew or heard of your loved one may be influenced directly or indirectly by the actions or reactions to the death as it was experienced by those who did. We are all part of a rich tapestry. When anyone dies, no matter how they die, it is felt, it is absorbed, and it is processed emotionally, mentally, physically, psychologically, environmentally, socially, and perhaps financially over time. And all of those categories are given modes of experience through which we can interpret our perception of life until we die. And then the stories go on as those who know us and love us absorb our deaths in their own ways. Now, I'm not an expert here, but I imagine it's the difference between experiencing life in 2D versus 3D, or 3D versus 5D. So let's take a look at the question again. Why did God allow this to happen? On my big baby brother's headstone, my mum had the words, God giveth and God taketh away, etched. Surely that would make God an Indian giver. Yes, I said Indian giver. It's an offensive term rooted in the European colonialist misunderstanding of indigenous cultures and focusing on manipulation like strings attached and transactional giving or guilt tripping. Of course, the European colonialists could only understand it in that way because those were the methods that they have always used, are still using to colonialize, trap, and ensnare people. Is that how your God operates? Surely it is, if you are following the God of your colonial masters. And still, there are people out there who believe that God is love. But I'm sure that you will agree that there are some deaths that appear downright ungodly. If he gives just to snatch it back in the wickedest of ways, then what kind of God is he? And is he worthy of your praise? I want you to consider for a hot minute that your idea of God has been hijacked. I said at the start of this talk that our idea of God has been culturally shaped and historically conditioned. Regardless of our colour, culture, background, or perceived identity, we too have been culturally shaped and historically conditioned. We are suppressed, controlled, and manipulated every day. So when we ask why would God allow this to happen to us, we are lashing out in the wrong direction. We are the essence of God. We are source in human form. God hasn't done anything to us. Life and death have simply operated in time. And whilst our time is within our remit of control, our time is within the power of those who control us. If we retained more control of our time, we would retain more control over our stories. If we didn't give our time away to our employers, social media, politics, organized religion, staged spirituality, worries and fears, we would spend more of it living in harmony with those that we love. When they die, we believe we have been dealt a cruel and direct blow by God because we didn't have enough time with those we loved. We had plans. We had a future. We had time. So perhaps the more fitting question here is who and why do they want our time? I think I'll leave it there. But this is a video that you might want to watch over again in order to deeply understand, understand the meaning of it. Then leave it a few months and come back again. If I have piqued your interest and you like what you've heard, please hit that like button and subscribe. If this video has touched you in any way and you need to share your thoughts, then let me know at deathinpractice@gmail.com. Please state clearly whether or not any of your email can be shared, and if you want the shout out, then let me know what to call you. If you want to be part of the live conversation where we talk about life and death, dying and grief in this stark fashion, book your space on the monthly Zoom. At the moment, I only have 12 spaces available, and the Eventbrite link is below. And if you would like a one-to-one with myself or one of my grief practitioners, contact us at www.dippism.com. Finally, if someone you know needs to see this video, don't be a knob. Share it with them. All of my links are in the description box below. And now, let us close the veil of luminescence. By the breath of the infinite, by the pulse of the sacred, I honour the veil of luminescence now fulfilled. This veil, once summoned to transmute and contain, has held the field with clarity, compassion, and sovereign light. As the teachings settle and the soul integrates, I call forth the sacred closure of this veil across all realms. On the mental plane, let the body rest in renewal. On the emotional plane, let sorrow soften into spaciousness. On the mental plane, let stories find stillness. On the astral plane, let echoes return to source. Through interdimensional corridors, let threads untangle. Across spheres and planetary systems, allow contracts to be honoured and released. Let all residues now return to their rightful place, dissolved, dispersed, or transmuted by sovereign light. Let the veil fold inward, encoded with discernment to preserve what is true, containment to seal what is sacred, compassion to cradle what remains tender, and wisdom to carry forth what has been alchemized. This veil is reabsorbed into the soul's archive, a luminous record of presence, grief, and transformation. By the breath of the infinite, by the pulse of the sacred, I seal this veil with sovereignty and light.